Just about 15 minutes after 7, you're watching News at Prime. Thanks very much for staying with us. Let's bring you this development now. Civil service unions are approaching the courts to challenge government's stance on their 2018 wage agreement. This time, they're going straight to the Constitutional Court in an effort to challenge last month's ruling in favour of government. Now, you remember the Labour Appeal Court, that is, ruled that trade unions could not force government to implement the wage increases, citing public service regulations. Government says it could not pay the increased salaries amid the economic malaise caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. For more on this, strategically speaking, let's bring in the South African Democratic Teachers Union's General Secretary, Mogoena Maluleke. He joins us via our video link to explain this course of action. Mr. Maluleke, thanks for your time. Welcome to the AM Report, to News at Prime, force of habit. On what basis are you hoping for a different outcome here?
Let me greet you and the viewers at home and really thank you for the opportunity to clarify this matter. That the basis for us has always been that we held a view as the trade union movement in the country that if we do not challenge the outcome of the Labour Appeal Court, is going to set a very bad precedent, not only in the public service, but it is going to be used by any other employer that said we agree for a 3-year or 5-year multi-year agreement, and at any time when it feels like the employer doesn't feel like honoring it, will then cite this particular Labour Appeal Court judgment and really walk away from the collective agreement. And for that reason, that's why we said that we're going to challenge this thing, because we cannot allow a situation where the progressive labor regime in our country can be really be destroyed by this judgment. We think that the Labour Appeal Court has erred in not looking at the evidence that we've been presenting as Labour, that says that for 2 years the government has implemented, and therefore the government could not delay for 24 months and now all of a sudden talk about unlawfulness of this particular agreement. And therefore that reason we said, let us take it to the apex court of our country in order to ventilate and really express our shock and really our discomfiture around the fact that we cannot have collective agreements in our country being undermined and people walking away from them. So we have got a number of points why we're doing this.
Yeah. What do you say to people who suggest that this move is out of kilter, for lack of a better term, right? We are in a context where the economic fallout of COVID-19 cannot be denied. People are losing their jobs across all sectors, and unions are asking for an increase in that context. Would you agree with the sentiment that perhaps this is not necessarily in line with the ways through which people should be responding to what everyone is going through?
Well, I wouldn't agree with that, because I think that it's not that trade union movement is not aware of the economic hardships in the country. We are at the forefront of making sure that we protect the jobs and making sure that people have got a living and they earn a living wage and so forth. So whilst we have been working very hard together with the UIF and everyone else as COSATU in ensuring that the jobs are protected, we are saying here, this particular outcome of the Labour Appeal Court is going to create even more problems, where in actual facts, if we do not protect or defend collective bargaining in the country, we are going to see more people losing their jobs, not because of COVID, but just because of the fact that they can walk away from a binding collective agreement. So trade union movement in our country is fully aware of the conditions that we are living under, and hence we are saying to the court that the court has got to look at remedial, which are equitable, where we can be able to say, can we implement this collective agreement in any other way in terms of the duration, whether it's 2 years or whether it's 3 years, and so for taking into account the situation, our economic situation find itself in the country and so forth. So we stand in solidarity with those who are losing their jobs and those who have taken salary cuts and so forth, because we are in the front line. We are fighting against COVID as nurses and police and teachers, and therefore it is not unfair for us to say, let's defend collective bargaining in our country in the interest of our economy, because if we don't, the economy is going to take long before it can start growing, because we are going to see suppression of wages, and therefore there will be no spending, and no spending means that there will be no economic growth because there will be no consumption, there will be no demand. So we fully understand that collective bargaining is an economic tool that will ensure that we're able to deal with inequalities and many other things that in actual fact, those who are having these sentiments that trade union movement is not sensitive really are simplifying a very complex issue. And we believe that we can sympathize with them. However, it is because they may not understand the long-term consequences of a court judgment that takes away collective bargaining.
Yeah, point taken. But many will ask, if a global health crisis of catastrophic proportions is not enough to relook pre-established agreements, what is?
Well, we need to understand that it's important for us to then say, when we have this particular crisis in our country, we should have built clearly a health system that is resilient. And clearly, to build that resilience in hospital is that we need more workers in the hospital who are motivated, who are able to wake up in the morning and say, I'm risking my life, I'm risking my family's life by going to ensure that I do what I love most. Go there. When people are talking about social distance, nurses don't have the right for social distance. They have got to be with me who is infected and help me. So basically, it is that in actual fact, we need collective agreements not to be walked away from, but rather be protected. And then we talk about, okay, now we have got a problem of finances, we have economic problem. Can we be able to renegotiate the terms of this particular collective agreement? Because all of us are appreciating that we have got this particular crisis that is catastrophic in our country and globally. So not to say collective agreement are unlawful. And I think that's a principle that we want to be appreciated, that we are saying, don't say it's unlawful, just rather say, let us renegotiate the terms so that we are able to live with lawful collective agreement. It doesn't mean we can implement it tomorrow, but we can be able to agree when we can implement this, when we have got the capacity to do so, and we can do that. So I think the principle is that do not really destroy collective bargaining, because it is a tool that is going to help you to get out of this particular crisis that we find ourselves in.
In my language, we say, the perception I'm getting from you is government ngenile, whether there's a COVID-19 crisis or anything like that, if there's been an agreement with unions, you must commit to it. So take us through then some of the conditionalities that you're open to, right? So if it's not to be implemented as per the agreement itself, what are you thinking as unions can be the alternative?
Yeah, we are saying to the court, look, we want the apex court to dearly listen to the evidence that we have put to the labor appeal court. We have said to the labor appeal court, please, there is an equitable remedy. And that equitable remedy, it is that you need to send the parties back to the collective bargaining chamber, and therefore they have got to look at how they can spread the implementation of this particular agreement. So that's number one. It is that you've got to relook at how you can spread the implementation of this collective agreement, taking into account the economic hardships that our people find themselves in. That's one area. Two, it is that we need to then, the apex court to say, you have to go back, find a situation where you start respecting issues of conciliation and arbitration, because those are meant for you to strengthen your relationship, avoid unnecessary disruption of essential services, so that you then strengthen those particular things. And we are saying, if we have been sent back, we have got those particular alternatives, and in actual fact, we'll then be able to strengthen our relationship with our employer in the interest of our people in the country. So it's an issue of implementing it differently rather than the manner in which we have signed it. So we are amenable as labor to begin to say, let's look at the time frame, let's look at the quantum of this particular collective agreement, because we are aware of the problem. So both ways is time as well as the quantum of the increases in terms of the percentages. We should have got 5.5%. Therefore, what is it that is reasonable, what we can be able to agree to, and all those particular alternatives that we can find.
Very well. Well, we'll see what the Constitutional Court thinks. Thanks very much for coming through and helping us understand your thinking as we approach that moment. That there, South African Democratic Teachers Union's General Secretary, Mokoena Maluleke. Sir, thanks very much indeed for your time.